In this lecture, I want to talk about some enhanced API storytelling features, specifically using the run action step in storytelling. Now, this particular model is just the previous storytelling model that we were using transformed into a simulation model so that savings account and water level are now stocks with flows into them. Interest rate, desired water level, and gap are variables, and I've added a couple of sliders to set some initial values. I've gone ahead and set up the settings so that this runs from 0 to 10 years, and if I run the simulation, it in fact runs. And it's appropriate to run a savings account for 10 years, but it actually doesn't make much sense to run a fill in the bathtub for a 10-year period of time. This is a leftover. Let me get rid of this. So what I really want to do is I want to unfold the model the same way it was unfolded before. This unfolds piece by piece by piece, and this unfolds all at once. Though after this is unfolded, I want to run a simulation. Then I want to change the parameters so that this runs for a period of 10 minutes. And so I set all those parameters and run the simulation. And that way both simulations make sense, even though they're on very different time frames. So let's go ahead and edit the story. The first thing I want to do is add a setup. So add a folder and call it setup, and put the change visibility in there, and I'll also put a run action step in there. And this, what I'm going to put in here is a set of commands that I consistently use in a setup mode. The first one, this is a short form for an if then else statement. It looks at the top bar up here to see if it's open. If it is, it turns it, closes it. It looks at the sidebar to see if it's open or if it's closed, and if it's closed, it opens it. There's currently a bug in XJS so that simulation results are a little unstable if the parameter panel on the right isn't open. And this final command, set zoom to fit, will enlarge the model to fit whatever space is available on the canvas. Then the visibility as it was, and then it unfolds the bank, unfolds the interest, unfolds the growth rate, and now what I want to add is another step and call it simulate savings, and in that I want to go ahead and do a run action, and I want to set some values. Now, because I am uncertain as to what someone else might have done to the model before I actually run the storytelling, I want to make sure that I set all of the parameters that are critical to making the savings bank run appropriately. So I set the start time, start length, years, and the time step. And then I set the initial value of the savings account to 100, and I set the interest rate at 2%. Then I want to go ahead and run the simulation, and I want to tell it to display the savings account graph, and then I want to put out a message saying this is the savings account results. And I'll apply this, and we'll go ahead and view it and see if it does what we expect it to do. So here's the unfolding of the savings account, and then it runs the simulation, and then it does the rest of the things, but we need to fix it now to go one step further. So let me close this, exit storytelling. Remember to exit storytelling, because if you make changes when you're in storytelling mode, they get lost. So here's the simulated savings. Here's the balance, and now I want to add another step and call it simulate bathtub, and I want to do a run action, and I want to insert sort of the same set of commands, but I'm setting the start time at 0 and 10, only I'm setting the units in minutes, and I'm time stepping in a quarter every 15 seconds. I find the value of water level and set it to 0 and the desired level at 50. Then I go ahead and run the simulation and tell it that I want it to display the bathtub graph, add a message to say, here's the bathtub filling. And there's one thing that I forgot in run action. The graph is still open from previously. So I need to go ahead and close the window. So I'll use close all windows, which will close the graph that was left. And then it'll show a message. And down here in final, I also want a run action, and I want to close the window from the bathtub simulation. This will show everything, and that wasn't so hard, was it? So this should be everything now, if it runs correctly. So we unfold the savings account piece by piece. We run the simulation. It didn't close the window. I wonder why. Let me see. Exit story. Edit story. Simulate the bathtub. Close all windows. This should have closed the window, but for some reason it didn't. And this should have closed all windows. I'll have to figure out what's wrong with that, because it's not closing the windows the way it should. It's putting the other window right on top of it, and then now it's closing all the windows. I'll have to look into that, but it did close at the end. So that's an additional set of commands, and that gives you a sense of how you put commands, functions from the API into a simulation to get it to do the things that you want. And as I said, you figure out what it is that you want the model to do, and then you go searching for the pieces to do it with, as opposed to studying all of the API commands and then trying to figure out what you're going to do with them. It ends up being backwards. You can also look at the moose and wolves model, look at the story for that in terms of the way that the run actions were done for that, because it goes ahead and provides part of the model, does a simulation of that piece with just the moose, then it shows the wolf part, it runs that part, then it actually connects the two pieces of the model and runs the interaction of the two populations together. So I'll put a link to this in the resources tab on this lecture, and I'll also put one for the balancing loop with delay. This one's really interesting because the only thing that's changing in the model is the delay time, and yet the view that happens changes drastically with the delay time. So you can go ahead and clone this and look at the storytelling that's behind it, because it's very interesting in terms of how it goes ahead and changes the delay time each time and updates the sidebar and shows what can happen in a model with only changing one variable, and the output is relatively unexpected. So Hope you found this of interest, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.